One of our plans when we started TCN was to run great long-form content, documentaries on topics that other people were ignoring. Well, we have the best so far. It's called Line in the Sand, and it's by James O'Keefe, one of the last brave and honest journalists in this country. How brave? James O'Keefe embedded with the cartels as they moved migrants engaging in human trafficking at the largest scale in modern times from Latin America to the United States. He embedded with the cartels with hidden cameras, and the result is this documentary, Line in the Sand, which we are proud to run exclusively on TCN. Line in the Sand, October 10th. Highly recommended.
Thank you. Every night, this is our 14th or 15th city, and every night I've been traveling with the Sambrosa guys. The best, absolutely the best. Thank you all for showing. I'm amazed there's anyone here, given the weather. Thank you. I know this. I've been getting videos all day from my neighbors and people in Florida, and I'm sorry about what happened, and I know a lot of you had to drive through the muck to get here, so thank you very much. I'm grateful to be back in Florida. Well, I love you too. Thank you. We went on this tour for a bunch of different reasons, the most obvious being you can't censor a live event. Mark Zuckerberg can't get in the way, so that's pretty great. Another was to feel better about what's actually happening in the country. Is it as bad as the internet tells us it is? No, not at all. It's a great country filled with happy people despite everything. Every city we've been to, from the East Coast to the West Coast and everything in between, back to Florida, every city we've been to, I don't think I've met one nasty person. Everybody's been nice, not just to me, but to each other. And you're just reminded it's a great place. And accounts of America's collapse are absurd and probably part of a psyop that we should not fall for. And the third reason we went on the road was honestly to see what's true. If there's one marker of this moment, it's deception. And, oh no, you are hot. I can't even see you. You can't say naughty things to me. I'm a married man. Plus, I don't have my glasses on and I'm backlit, so all I hear is the darkness barking naughty things at me. But it's hilarious, thank you. I'm 55, so I'll take the compliment. But it's true, I think every person in this room has had the same moment over the last 5 years where you realize that something they told you was totally insane. Like, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy nut. And then you just realize one day, well, actually, that's true. And if that's true, what else is true? And what else is false? And what else have they been lying to me about? If it's not actually safe and effective, what else is a lie? And I doubt there's a single person in this room who hasn't had that experience. And you go through stages of it, just like any moment of grief. And the first one is thinking, well, am I the only person who realizes what's going on? And you're sitting, like alone in your den at 2 a.m. on your phone, and you're like, oh my gosh. The whole thing is a lie, it's an op, and you feel like you're going crazy, and you think, well, maybe no one else sees this. And then you come to an event like this, and you look around at all these incredibly nice people, and you realize, no, not only am I not alone, I'm not weird. I'm not a freak, I'm not a conspiracy nut. I don't care what Wikipedia tells me. I'm like a totally normal person, and I know that because everyone sitting around me is a totally normal person. People who love their children more than anything. That's not weird. Not only is that not weird, that's the most normal, wholesome, good thing there is. And it's just nice to be reminded of that. But then the next question you have is, okay, if everything I've been hearing is untrue, certainly a lot of the big things are just completely untrue, and no matter how much they yell at me and demand that I believe them, they're still untrue. I don't care what you call me, it's not safe and effective, sorry. So the question really becomes, how do I know what's true? And how do I know what's false? And that's really the point of tonight. Every single night we've had has had a kind of different point, at least in my head, as conceived in the shower. And tonight I've been really brooding on that question, how do you know what's true? And we have two amazing guests. And I think the point of the conversation will be, how do you know what's true and how do you know what's false? And both of them are friends of mine, like actual friends of mine, like late night text friends of mine. But also men of deep experience in the entertainment business. Talk about a hall of mirrors. You think your world is crazy. And they're men of deep faith, John Rich and Russell Brand. So they'll be joining us and we're gonna talk about that. But I was obsessing over this today because I never watch television. We don't have a television, just to try to keep the deception at a low roar in my house. The first thing you can do is throw your television out the window. And then once it's on the ground outside the second floor window, jump on it and then run your truck over it and then set it on fire. And that is a good first step toward getting closer to the truth. So in other words, don't just get rid of it, but destroy it in a symbolic way. Offer it up as an offering to the gods of truth. You're gonna kill your television. But I happen to be in a hotel room where they come standard and you're not allowed to destroy them because this isn't actually Led Zeppelin 1977. You don't get to throw them out the window onto the pool deck because you get arrested. So I didn't. And I turned it on just to see what they were saying, what lies they were telling. And I sat there slack-jawed as they explained to me totally seriously that the real threat that former President Donald Trump faces is from Iran because they're trying to kill him. They're trying to assassinate him. And everyone on the screen said, oh yeah, Iran's the threat. I'm thinking, I don't know anything about Iran. I'm sure they're threatening. I'm sure they're bad. Not here to endorse Iran. Hardly. Having spent 3 years being called a puppet of Putin, I just want to say ahead of time, I'm not a puppet of the Ayatollah, whatever his name is. Not a Shiite. So I'm not carrying water for the Ayatollah when I say that that's probably not true. And how do I know that's not true? In fact, it's so not true that it was a little bit baffling watching all these kind of serious looking national security experts on the television telling me, oh no, it's Iran. And my tip off was, well, they tried to kill Trump twice in the past 6 weeks and it wasn't Iran. In fact, the last guy who tried to kill Trump was a neocon, actually. The same people who want war with Iran. In fact, how do I know he was a neocon? Because he literally moved to Ukraine to fight. Okay, so he had exactly the same politics as Lindsey Graham. I'm not attacking Lindsey Graham, I'm just saying. So there was that guy, and then boo, boo, boo. Okay, I'm not, fine. But he wasn't Iranian. Again, not carrying water for the Iranians. I'm probably one of the few people in this room old enough to remember the 1979 hostage crisis. I never thought I, would be defending them, but in this narrow way, I will say they didn't do that, nor did they climb onto the roof of a building 130 yards away from Trump during a rally in Butler Township earlier this summer and take a shot at him, shoot him in the face, and kill the guy right behind him. That was not the Iranians. That was a liberal. And he was allowed to do that because the Secret Service, which is controlled by the Biden administration, let him do that, okay? So you can say, well, are you alleging a conspiracy? No, I'm just telling you what happened. I've spent my life at events controlled by the Secret Service because I cover politics. And I can promise you that no one with a rangefinder is allowed through the magnetometer because a rangefinder is for shooting people. So when you carry a rangefinder through and they bust you, but then just let you do it, and then they let you crawl up onto a roof 130 yards away with a .223, they're letting you shoot the guy. And that's exactly what they did. And nobody for some reason wants to say that, but it's just a fact. So you can draw whatever conclusions you want, but the one conclusion no honest person can draw is that Iran is doing that. No, Iran's not doing that. The Biden administration did that. And the people who tried to kill Trump are Democrats, they're not Iranians, okay? And so it speaks to a larger problem, which is even now, 21 years after they told us Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, spoiler alert, he didn't. 4 years after they told us that, the COVID virus came from a pangolin, which, by the way, not to be, a walking desk reference here, is a mammal that was somehow being sold in a seafood market. Remember that? It came from a pangolin. Of course, it was a pangolin, another pangolin-borne virus. Something we dealt with a lot growing up in Southern California. I remember my mother saying, just be careful of the pangolin, you gotta cook them, It's kind of a classic vector for coronavirus, the pangolin. Stay away from the pangolin burger or get it at least medium well. A pangolin, right. It didn't come from the biolab 400 yards away that was funded by Tony Fauci. Definitely not. Remember they told us that? And if you're like, wait a second, wasn't there a biolab right there? Getting US taxpayer funding, working on gain of function to make the coronavirus more dangerous? Shut up. Kind of like when they announced it in a Senate hearing on television that there are all these biolabs in Ukraine, and you're like, wait a second, why do you have biolabs in Ukraine? Shut up, conspiracy theorist. No, you just said that. Shut up, racist. Racist? I thought the Ukrainians are white. Shut up, anti-trans guy. Okay. That all happened right in front of us. Then just take the shot, it's totally safe and effective. Once you take it, you can't get COVID and you definitely can transmit it. Really, then, how come you have COVID, Tony Fauci? Shut up! You're trying to kill your grandmother. I liked my grandmother, shut up! Okay, so all of us saw all of that happen, and at a certain point you gotta think the people telling you to shut up racist, that group, they might not be telling the truth about everything. Just throwing that out there. Like maybe Lindsey Graham's not totally on the level. And yet today they're telling us that Iran is really the threat. It's not the threat that we see right in front of us, which is them, the ones who let them shoot Trump. No, it's a country that most Americans couldn't find on a map. It definitely must be them. And really the only solution to this is to go to war with them. Because the one thing we definitely need is more sort of pointless foreign wars that we're gonna lose. Okay, and you start to realize two things. One, they're not very creative in their lies. They'll just go back to exactly the same lies. And when they do tell those lies, everybody whose job it is to kind of screen for lies, all the gatekeepers, all the fact checkers, the guys who run Wikipedia, the Snopes people, they'll all sort of nod and be like, yeah, that's right, that's totally true. And unfortunately, a lot of people just will sort of believe it. Like some people don't seem to be learning the lesson, which is that you have to decide for yourself. And the first line of defense when you're deciding whether something is true or false is just common sense. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And here's one way I judge it. So if the Biden administration, which controls not just Trump's security, but also his access to classified information, because they control the intel agencies. So if the Trump campaign wants to know what's going on, they have to rely on the Biden administration to find out. And if they want to protect themselves from that threat, they need to rely on the Biden administration to supply security. That's actually how our system works. I don't think that's a wise system, just saying. But if what they were saying is true, then they would, if they really believed Donald Trump was at risk of being shot out of the air with a surface-to-air missile, that's what they're telling us now, or being assassinated by a Iranian sleeper cell, because I know my neighborhood has quite a few, then they would be providing additional security, right? But they're not. They're providing so little security that he can't have outdoor rallies because they're withholding security. He had to cancel an outdoor event in Wisconsin last weekend because they wouldn't provide enough security. But if you actually believed that one of the most famous person in the world, the guy who's ahead in the polls, whatever they tell you, Trump is ahead, the man most likely to be the next president was at risk of being murdered by a foreign power, you'd probably provide enough security. And if you didn't have it, because they were running around the country protecting Dr. Jill, which is what happened in Butler, Dr. Jill was under grave, grave threat. A lot of people are trying to stop Dr. Jill before she heals again, because as a doctor, that's what she does. Dr. Jill, don't get me going. How can one woman's ego trip control a nation of 350 million people? It's kind of amazing. But anyway, But if you really believe that and you didn't have enough security because they were with Dr. Jill at a diversity conference in Knoxville, you would bring in the National Guard or maybe the 101st Airborne. You would use the military to protect the future president from murder by a foreign power, but they're not doing that. They're saying this is happening, the threat is so high that you can't appear outside, but we're not gonna help you protect yourself with security that you pay for. I'm thinking this is not on the level because that doesn't make any sense at all. And if it does, tell me how it makes sense. And this is true of virtually everything they say. It's not hard to determine whether it's true or false because you just assess it on the basis of like first grade logic. And that's true for almost everything. And they know it's true. And that's why they spend so much time trying to convince you that you're insane and try to convince you that your senses don't work. That actually they hand you a hamburger that smells like a dog bomb and they're like, no, it's really good. It smells like dog crap. I'm not eating that. You must eat it because it's delicious. But I feel like I'm gonna vomit when it gets to me. Shut up and eat it. There's something wrong with your palate. There's nothing wrong with your palate. Your nose works fine. You know what's good or bad. You know what's right or wrong because you're born knowing. All of us are. We were born knowing what's right or wrong. Our moral code is no different substantially from the moral code that Hammurabi wrote thousands of years ago because it's in us. We know. And so the trick is to convince you that you don't know, that you need Dr. Jill or somebody else with a fake credential to know what's right or wrong. And you absolutely don't. You don't, and no free people does. You are allowed to decide for yourself on the basis of your values, your senses, and above all, your instincts. And I tell my kids this all the time, and I really mean it. Your instincts are designed to protect you. They were given to you by God at birth with one job. And that job is not to get elected to some stupid statewide office. There's no senator instinct. They're not trying to sell you a reverse mortgage. Your instincts are not trying to get rich. Your instincts only exist to protect and serve you. That's it. They're the most reliable guide you have, so trust them. Despite all the noise, and all the noise, if you actually think about it, and it's my job to think about it, all of it is designed to get you to ignore what's obvious. What's obvious? And they do that for two reasons. One, there's a certain power trip involved in lying to people in a way that's so obvious they know it's a lie, but making them believe it anyway, because really only God can do that. And that's what they loved about COVID, when it was so clear that everyone who got the shot was still getting COVID. They totally got off on preventing you from saying that, because that's true power. It's easy to fool someone. It's much harder to get someone to repeat a lie he knows is a lie, right? And that made them feel powerful. So that's the first thing. The second thing is they try to make you feel like there's something wrong with you, that you're in some weird minority of people, like some freaky subcategory that just doesn't want to castrate kids. What? You don't want to castrate? What's wrong with you, man? This country was built on child castration. We wouldn't have an America without child castration. Like, what? And you're like, really? Is that really a weird view? Yes, it is. You cannot allow them to do that. And as I always tell my kids, you know. For example, if you're talking to someone and you get the creepy vibe, like Tim Walz, I'm just throwing that out there. I've never met Tim Walz. But the first second I was like, man, I don't have enough evidence to indict you, I'm not going to, okay? But you're a creep. I went to boarding school in New England in the 1980s. You were my dorm master. I know exactly who you are. I know exactly who you are. There's no reason for you to be in the shower, Tim. Please leave. I felt that so overwhelmingly from him. And then I thought to myself, maybe I'm being unfair. No, I'm not. Again, I'm not going to accuse him of anything specific. I have zero evidence. And I'm not going to bring charges against him because I can't, right? That's a process that requires proof. I don't have proof. All I have is my spidey senses, and they're never wrong. And if I feel like you're a creep, I don't know exactly what you're doing, but you're doing something, you weirdo. because I can smell it. And I always tell that to my children. Don't let anyone convince you you're wrong. You're never wrong. Don't attack the person, just get away fast. And don't get into his van, ever. That's fair, right? I don't care if it has heart-shaped windows and funny bumper stickers, don't get into his van. The same is also true for deception. I don't know what you're lying about, but I know you're lying. I can feel it. All of us have that power. We were born with it. We can smell deception and we know when someone's telling the truth. We can't always prove it. Usually I can't prove it. But if you've ever been around someone who's saying something you've never thought of before, but it's true, it hits a different way. It hums like a tuning fork. You can feel it inside. That's true. I never heard that before. I have no evidence that that's true. I've never even thought of that. That is true. I know that's true. The truth, and whoever's yelling yes, yeah, baby. Because that's the feeling you have inside when you hear something that's true. And they're always like, have the fact checkers assessed? That's not on Wikipedia, that's not true. The CIA hasn't vetted that. That's a conspiracy theory. Okay, it's still true.
So this is creepy, but it's true and it's worth knowing. Every time you use the internet, you are being watched. You are not alone. Private businesses do it, government actors, our country and others, all of it. Internet traffic, including yours, is mined like a precious commodity. It's bought and sold, and it's used to manipulate what you think, what you buy, and yes, even how you vote. It's a big deal, and it's a huge market. Your internet provider can see every single website you visit, all of them. And in the United States, they're allowed to sell your data, even your browsing history, to the highest bidder. Did you know that? And that includes everything you do inside a so-called incognito or private browser window. Don't fool yourself. They're watching you always. So if you think that should be illegal, obviously we agree with you. It should be put out of business, these companies, immediately. But in the meantime, you should protect yourself. The way that we do it is with ExpressVPN. That's an easy-to-use app that encrypts and reroutes all your internet traffic through secure servers, so they can't see it. Because we use ExpressVPN, our internet providers cannot see our browsing history. Simply put, we've got nothing to sell because they don't have anything on us. That's important to us. It's probably important to you too. So if you think internet privacy only matters to drug traffickers, people who are doing shady things, think again. Privacy is a prerequisite for freedom. No privacy, no freedom. And the truth is, we have all seen how activists and power-hungry government actors have tried and succeeded in getting people fired or even thrown in jail for saying the wrong thing or having the wrong opinions. Protecting your personal data is essential. It's the beginning of reclaiming your freedom. ExpressVPN hides your IP address. That's a number that reveals your actual identity on the internet. It's unique. Because we hide our IP address with ExpressVPN, data brokers can't use it to build a profile on us to sell off to marketers or other governments or our own government. That happens too. By the way, hiding your IP address is really useful when you want to appear to be somewhere you're not. And that's your prerogative, by the way. We used it in Moscow to get our reporting out of the country. We've used it around the world. We always use it. You can also use it to access geo-restricted content from anywhere. So if you're in a country that doesn't allow you to use an app, you can with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN has server locations in over 100 countries around the world. That's like having 100 different passports right on your phone. So I'm not a tech expert, obviously, and if I can use it, you can too. It's really easy. You just tap one button and you're connected. They have apps for every device you own or even potentially own. iPhone, any kind of phone, laptop, tablet, even your smart TV. Anything that uses the internet can use ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN has been rated #1 by CNET, The Verge, and a lot of other tech reviewers. We have it. You should too. Right now, TuckerCarlson.com listeners can get 3 extra months free at expressvpn.com/Tucker. That's expressvpn.com/Tucker for 3 extra months for free.
Well, God bless you. And that's exactly where that power comes from. It comes from God. That's exactly right. As I always say to my children, your instincts are imprecise, but they're unerring. I don't know exactly what you're lying about. I don't know what you're hiding. I don't know what your freaky secret is. I don't want to know, actually. No interest at all. But I know you got one, and I know you're lying to me. And I'm at this stage in my life, at my advanced age, having cycled through a few jobs in my time, I've decided I'm just gonna say that. I'm gonna say that because I really believe it. And I'm never again gonna sit there and let them tell me that Iran is the greatest threat when I've been to most cities in this country and they're falling apart and Iran didn't do that. You did it. You did it. Our leaders did it. The people who run this country let their country die. The mullahs didn't do that. I'd love to blame the mullahs. I wish a war with Iran would fix Reading, Pennsylvania, and Gary, Indiana, and Philadelphia, and New York City. I really wish that. That'd be easy. Just beat Iran and prosperity and self-respect return. No problem. We've got the weapon systems for that. But it's much more insidious, and it's much more obvious. The people who run this country don't care about the people who live in the country. It's literally that simple. And if they did care, they'd have the view, I'm sure, of every single person in this room, which is, I'm not defending Iran, I'm sure it's terrible. That's why I don't live there. I live here. And what I care about is here, because I was born here, and my parents are buried here, and I will be too, and my children will live on here because we're Americans. And we want this country to thrive. And so our focus, our attention, our love is focused on our nation and how its people are doing. That's what we care about. And that's the lens through which we make all judgments. Is this good for my country? And by my country, I mean me, my neighbors, my wife, my children, everyone I know, my generations yet unborn. I'd like them to be born in this country and live the life that I have lived. Will the decision make that possible? Will it help them? And if it won't, I'm not for it. And by the way, anyone who is for it is not my friend. This is not simply a disagreement. You're my enemy. If you don't care about me, if you're willing to walk around this country full of the best people there are, I've been all over the world, I can promise you this is the nicest country by far. You get lost in America, I'm lost. Try being some tourist from a foreign country who can barely speak English. Doesn't matter what country, actually. It can be Liberia or Belgium. It doesn't matter. You show up in some town in Oregon, or even Massachusetts, kind of rough, but even in Massachusetts, I'm totally lost, you say in broken English. And they're like, oh, go this way. They'll help you. Try being a dog in America. No country has ever treated dogs better than America. And if that's not a measure, when you're a dog in America, you've won the dog lotto. Try being a dog anywhere else. It's a dog's life, right? Well, try being right. Well, that's true. Things are changing in certain parts of Ohio. And the dogs know that and they're distressed, trust me. They're like, you can get eaten there, we're out. By the way, when Trump said that, which was the single greatest thing Trump has ever said, everyone hated that debate, and a lot of Trump voters hated that debate. A lot of people who like Trump really hated that because they like Trump. And they want him to do his best. And then he comes out and he's just, pretty Trumpy. No, don't say that, And, but if you look at the numbers, he actually did pretty well after the debate. You know what I mean? It's almost like watching your kid play soccer. You're too emotionally invested in it. Like, come on, Dylan, make the kick. And no one else notices, only you, because it's your kid. That's how I think a lot of Trump voters, they want him to be, they love him, so they want him to do great. But actually, he did pretty well after the debate, according to the numbers. And one of the reasons he did is because Americans are just not for dog eating. I'm sorry, they're not. And they can tell you, they get all hyperventilating and all hysterical. Shut up, there's no dog eating, which is exactly the moment you know, oh yeah, there's some dog eating going on. 100%. How do I know that? Because the liars said it's not true, that's why. Chances they're eating dogs in Springfield, Ohio, 100%. 100%. I bet my house on that. Because Wikipedia says it's a conspiracy theory. Done. Woo, I'm out of control. Sorry. But the point is, sorry. By the way, most people know that. That's why the moment that just appalled David Muir, I've been in journalism for 33 years, and I can promise you he's a very good journalist based on his abs. It's so funny. It's like, imagine going into any business out of self-love. It's just not a good motive. You know what I mean? Because you want to look at yourself on camera. Every shot of David Muir is like admiring his biceps. He's doing this slow rotisserie turn. What a douche. Anyway, he was, it's like a joke. It's like a joke. Only when you work at ABC News do you not know that everyone else thinks you're absurd. Luckily, I have an ever-present knowledge of being considered absurd because I know that I am. And I know that I am because I've been in hotel rooms for 17 straight nights and they have mirrors outside the shower. And every time I emerge from the shower, I'm like, I'm kind of impressive. And then I see myself, I'm like, what is that? There's like some lumpy primate standing in my bathroom. Like, what the hell? And it's such a wonderful, it's horrifying, obviously. But it's such a wonderful moment because you are a lumpy primate, actually. And it's so good to know that. It's so good to see yourself in perspective. No matter how right you think you are, fundamentally you're absurd because you're not God. And I do think that we should install a series of mirrors outside David Muir's bathroom. And all of them, Wolf Blitzer and all the Wolf Blitzer. All right, Wolf, let's see you naked. I'm serious, like nobody looks good. I mean, it's just a fact. I don't. I'll just say it. But they don't know that they don't. And it's so embarrassing. Anyway, the point is, when someone's telling the truth, you know it's true. Don't second guess your instincts. They're the greatest gift you've ever been given. And on the basis of them, tell the truth yourself and tell it without fear. It doesn't matter what they call you. It doesn't matter how loud they yell. When you're telling the truth, you know it's true and everyone around you knows it too. And there's nothing more liberating than that. And so I hope you will. And so with that, I want to invite the first of two guests. So we're gonna have my friend John Rich, who's actually a wonderful man, in addition to being an amazing performer. And then we're gonna invite our friend Russell Brand. But first, my friend from Nashville, Tennessee, John Rich.
How about a round of applause for America's #1 patriot, Tucker Carlson?
I don't know.
That's you. It's either you or Ted Nugent. I say it's you, though.
I think
That's
it's
you.
definitely Ted Nugent, honestly. I love Uncle Ted. Been to my house, wonderful man. So you are one of the few people, I've been brooding on this truth or falsehood question all day long. You are one of the few people I've ever known, and I'm proud to be your friend, who doesn't ever seem to struggle with this question, what's true and what's false. You seem to know it and you seem to trust your intuition on this question. Is that true? And if so, why do you trust it?
Well, humans don't really have inherent intuition, in my opinion. There's a thing called discernment.
Preach!
Discernment. Discernment is what King Solomon asked for. And you know, as the Bible says, that Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived. Well, okay, if that's the case, I want to learn about what he was all about, because I could use some wisdom in my life as well. And when you see what Solomon was asking for, he could ask for anything. He didn't ask for more money. He didn't ask for more power. He said, give me discernment. I want discernment. I want to be able to tell what's true and what's false. And I think in this world we're living in today, here in 2024, it seems like everything is a lie or a version of the truth, however you want to put it. Even from a lot of Republicans that are out there spouting it off, and you're looking at that going, you see them say something and you go, that does not seem true to me. I don't know what's not true about it, but it doesn't seem that way. So my suggestion would be, if it doesn't seem true to you, it's not true. Just go with that. Don't try to talk yourself out of that. It just hits you in the gut wrong. It's just something about that's not right. So people are thirsting for truth. I think that's why they're showing up in crowds like this to hear you speak, because they know that you're not working for anybody, nobody owns you, and you're just saying the truth. That's it. The truth is the greatest commodity ever.
I do think unemployment makes you more honest, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, no doubt. You could definitely lie your way into another great job anytime you wanted to.
No thanks. I don't think I'm in danger of being snapped up by CNN. So, what do you live in Nashville, you're in the entertainment business, but you're very, more than any singer-songwriter, entertainer I've ever met, you're very connected with what, a lot of people. Everyone I ever meet, knows you. Where do you think we are in this race, the presidential race, which is 30-odd days away?
Where are we at in the presidential race? I think Trump's going to win. Now, my personal thoughts on it are this. The more it looks like Trump is going to win, the more danger the country is in. Because the other side, you're not just looking at if they lose, they're losing the White House. They're in big, big trouble if he gets in there again. Because let me ask this crowd a question. Do you feel like you're somewhat even of a different person than you were 4 or 5 years ago as to what you know now? Right? I think COVID was the big catalyst for that, Tucker, that, listen, I was a guy that said, well, if you're a Republican, you're a good guy. That's how I felt. If you're a Republican, you're a good guy. If you say the right thing in the interview, yep. If you say what I think, I'm behind you, man. Let's go. And then COVID comes along and we see how we were manipulated, lied to, and the catastrophic results of those lies, what that yielded in our population. And we saw our own party doing that and realized, hang on a minute, you mean to tell me that this guy that I've always thought was a real McCoy is in the pocket of Big Pharma? What? That can't be true. You remember having that experience? That cannot be true. It can't be. It can't be. And then as time goes by, you realize, oh yeah, it is true, and it is true as a heart attack is true. And then you start to step back from the whole thing and go, hang on a minute, I think this whole thing is playing we the people to their own end, which is something horrible. And so now, I don't think I like these guys anymore. And then they start seeing we the people standing up out of their chairs and starting to flex their muscles and go, hang on a minute now, no. And then you see the intensity of the pushback start to kick in, don't you? Here they start arresting grandmas for praying outside of an abortion clinic. Or you see them, listen, I've been to the Capitol many times. You know they have magnetic locks on those doors? The doors are this thick, and they're magnetically locked. I mean, you can't get in. And they swing those doors open and say, come on in, guys. And here come all the people going, wow, I can't believe, I never thought I'd see this before. Arrest, 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 throw them all in jail with no habeas corpus. Forget excessive bail, no bail. It would be tantamount to, in Nashville, if I saw a guy standing up on the street outside of my house and I opened the front gate. I said, hey, buddy, come on in. And he did. I said, follow me to the front door. And then I took the locks off the front door and I opened the front door and I said, come on in the house, man. Go anywhere you want to go. Check the place out. And he goes meandering through my house. And about the time he's up on the second or third floor, I come up there and I aim a rifle at that man. I say, get on the floor. I'm called the cops. You're under arrest. And I throw that man in jail. He goes, what are you talking about? He opened the gate, the front door, asked me to come in. Now I'm in jail for invading his house? That's right. That's what that is. Agree?
Well, not only do I agree, I mean, the videotape is now public.
We've all seen it.
Yes, and that's literally what happened.
So I think when you see things like that play out in our country, listen, don't take this the wrong way, but it feels like the USA has become the USSA to me. The people running this country, people ask me all the time, I'm out on the road playing music and stuff, just regular people. John, why do you think people in this country are going out of their way to destroy it? I mean, make that make sense. I said, because the ball game that they're playing is way bigger than the USA. That if they can get the USA to come down, remember this, Tucker, nobody ever reaches forward standing on their own 2 feet for a handout, ever. They only reach for a handout. They only reach for a lifeline when they're down on their knees and they're in this position right here. Please help me. Please save my life. I'm about to die. Save me, save me, save me. They reach up. Well, the only way you can get that to happen in America is you got to put us down on our knees, all the way down on the floor, down with our faces down. And it's a life or death situation, and we'll accept anything that they offer to us just to make it stop. And I really think what their goal is to inflict so much pain and misery on this country that at some point, America's down on its knees, and even the most patriotic among us will say, just make it stop. And when you do that, they got you. And I think that's the game they're playing. I think it's much bigger than politics at this point.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
So this is a stressful time of year. The kids are going back to school, vacation is over. It's the height of a presidential election season. There's a lot going on. You need a good night's sleep, but it's never been harder to get it. So we were talking about this in the office the other day, and a couple people who work here were raving about a product called 8 Sleep. And I wanted to know more about it. It turns out that temperature has a lot to do with whether or not you sleep comfortably and wake up feeling rested, like you actually slept. Now, the makers of 8 Sleep Pod figured out that if you make a climate-controlled mattress cover, you can add to your existing bed. You don't have to buy a new bed, just the cover. That it changes everything. You get far fewer problems with falling asleep and staying asleep, and so you feel rested the next day. Sleep actually has its desired effect. The 8 Sleep Pod can be used to warm up or cool off your bed. And that matters because temperatures change seasonally. We have climate change in this country. It's called winter. And so you can feel comfortable all night long. It even adjusts to different preferences on either side of the bed, which might be helpful in your relationship if you have one of those relationships where the different partners want different temperatures. And those are pretty common. The 8 Sleep Pod has been studied. It's been proven to improve people's sleep and health. Mark Zuckerberg's into it. Elon Musk on the other side. Many others use this product, including people here. So try it. Go to 8sleep.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker to get $350 off the Pod 4 Ultra. Recommended.
So you had one of the most amazing things I've seen in a long time. You wrote a song pretty recently on, a specific theological topic, the book of Revelation, which if you'd said to me, okay, there's a country music star, been in the business 30 years, and he's gonna write a song in the book of Revelation, and it's gonna go to #1 in the United States, I would have said, I don't think that's possible. Of all books of the Bible, by the way, they don't even teach that book in the Episcopal Church, or really any book in the Episcopal Church. But the point is,
we got to get you into a Pentecostal church.
I'm headed there, man. But anyway, the point is,
you in there.
What was that? That song, it was the biggest song in the United States. Like, how did that happen?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show to break that song, because that's where everybody learned about it. Even my normal outlets in the news that would normally have me on to sing my new song would not have me on to sing that song.
I'm not going to ask you to be more specific, but I think I know what you're talking about, John Rich.
Well, I said, well, why can't I come sing that song? And they said, it's too graphic. It's too graphic. And I thought about,
this is a channel that'll air a car crash live.
Right. Thought, well, what's so graphic about it? It's literally out of the pages of the book. It's the Bible itself. I just made it rhyme. That's all it is. But I think the line that got him was when it said, brimstone upon their heads and millstones around their necks. they'll feel the shaking when the trumpet sounds. And no matter where they hide, there'll be nowhere to run when Jesus puts his mighty foot on the ground. That tore them up. They didn't know what to do about that. Christians have got to realize that Jesus was not on the defense. He was on the offense the entire time. He was on the offense speaking the truth to these people that a lot of them got turned around and saved, but the hierarchy and the elites that he spoke the truth to murdered him. Jesus was not murdered for something that he did. He was murdered for things that he said. He was murdered for freedom of speech. They murdered him. They beat him half to death and they hung him up on a cross and bled every last drop of blood out of that man. And he allowed them to do it. If you want to know, if you're a Christian in this audience, who you actually follow, who is the Son of God, the Son of God could have evaporated the earth with a flick of his pinky. And he did not do that. He allowed them to torture him to death on behalf of us. So who are we to lose our nerve in these times that we call tough times? Who are we to lose our nerve right now? If that's who you follow, then follow him. Follow his example. Be on the offense. Speak the truth. That's it. The second thing I'd like to say about that, Tucker, a lot of Christians are under the misconception that, well, God's not going to let anything bad happen to me.
Where did they get that idea?
They get that idea from preachers. Because preachers like to preach that, hey, nothing bad's going to happen to all of us because he loves us too much to allow us to go through anything bad. And that keeps the churches packed. And that keeps the offering plate packed. And then I go, really? You should have told that to Daniel back in the day when Nebuchadnezzar invaded Israel. You know what they did to Daniel? I'm sorry, is anybody in this room better than Daniel? Raise your hand if you find yourself to be higher than that man. Nobody, right? Daniel.
Wait, no, nobody? Nobody?
I didn't see a hand. Daniel's sitting there, and guess what Daniel was? Daniel was a patriot. He was a Hebrew patriot. He was ready to fight Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians to the death. He was ready to go. Nebuchadnezzar comes in there, takes over Israel. They put Daniel in chains and all of his friends, castrate him and all of his friends, and throw him in a pit. Daniel. And then as time goes by, many years, Daniel winds up being the only guy that can interpret the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar. And so Nebuchadnezzar starts to raise him up in the hierarchy of that empire. And basically, Daniel became the second in command of the Babylonian Empire. But not before he was dragged off in chains and castrated in front of all of his friends. What about Job? What about Job? Did Job have some pain in his life? I think so. What about Noah? Did God rapture Noah out of the flood? Or was Noah directly in the flood, but he had a boat? God said, Noah, there's a flood coming, build a boat. And Noah's like, what? He goes, trust me, build a boat, Noah. The verse preceding that, Tucker, says, and God was grieved because he had created mankind in the first place. That's how polluted the earth had become, how wicked it had become. And what it says in Revelations is that it will be as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it will be at the end. And so you go, well, what was it like in the days of Noah? Well, the whole earth had been polluted to the point where God said, I am grieved that I even made mankind in the first place. What a statement from him. I should have never done this. And then it says, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. That doesn't mean he pulled Noah out. He said, build a boat, Noah. Noah goes, okay. So he starts building his boat. And it took him a couple of 100 years or so to build it, being scoffed at and scorned the entire time. Spit at, called every name in the book. And he just kept hammering kept building it, kept going, and then here comes the flood. Now, do you think Noah was really excited when the rain started to pour and the water started gushing out of the ground and the earth started to get flooded? Every human being he ever knew in his life, even the wicked ones that were his next door neighbors that he might have shared some goat's milk with or whatever, being a good neighbor, they're all going to be gone. You think he was really excited and feeling great about life at that point? I bet he was scared to death when that started happening. And the boat starts to float and go up and up and up. And the same flood that destroyed all the wicked raised Noah to safety, and he got to start over again. Now, if God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and his word does not change, which is what the book says, that means we change and culture changes, but he does not. So who are a bunch of fat, lazy American Christians think they are, that they're going to be able to escape what's coming? You can survive what's coming, but you can't escape it. And that's what preachers don't preach. That's why people think that they're going to escape all this. You asked a great question. That is why they think that. And that's a dangerous place to be in mentally. Because when things do get hard, you're not going to recognize them for what they are.
So it sounds like you're saying that part of the deal is suffering, and you can't lie to yourself about that.
You can lie to yourself about anything.
Yeah, I actually, I have, yeah.
No, I mean, who am I? I've got a high school diploma. I grew up in a double-wide trailer in Amarillo, Texas. My dad spent his life preaching in prisons and in Mardi Gras on the streets of this country. I do not come from some hierarchy family, but I think that's where a lot of us come from. The truth is not complicated. It's just difficult to get your head wrapped around because it is so abrupt when you finally run into it. You can't hide from it when you finally see what it is. Most people don't want to talk that way. Tucker will. That's why he got fired. That's why a lot of stuff's happened to him. But it's also why this room is full of people right now, because you want to hear the truth. Just tell me the truth. It is infuriating to know that every day you wake up, everything you hear is either a straight ahead lie or a twisted version of the truth. And to your question earlier, how am I supposed to know what's what? That's where discernment comes in, but you have to ask for that. Human beings do not innately have discernment. That's not something we have. You have to ask him for it, like King Solomon did and many others. And if you do ask him for it and you're serious about it, he'll give it to you. He will let you know when somebody is a liar and somebody's telling you the truth. He will let you know when you read something or you're trying to read the tea leaves, which is what literally everybody in this room and around our country are trying to do right now, put together all these jigsaw puzzles, try to figure out what's about to happen. He will help you with that. Isn't that great? Because who are we? Like this little tiny grain of sand on the world's largest beach. But he cares about each and every one of us individually. It's so powerful. If you can ever get your head wrapped around that, man, your life will get better quickly. Quickly.
I hate to ask you, but can you play a few bars of that song?
Can I play what?
A few bars of Revelation.
Oh, I can play that. Yeah, you want to hear that? You want to hear some music? So Tucker, I've been watching these events you're doing. I saw Kid Rock come out. He didn't sing anything.
No, he didn't.
Well, I'm getting ready to one-up Bob right now. All right. Let's see what I got. I will tell you this before I play this song. I wrote the song at the end of 2023. It was, if you watched our interview, I didn't set out to write it. It was an unofficial download. It was an unapproved download that hit me on this song. I picked up a guitar and I started writing this thing. And then it was, well, what do you want me to do with this, man? I mean, seriously, like Tucker said, you're going to put out a song about a book of the Bible that most people won't even flip to? That's what he told me to do. So I did it, and as I started taking my time with it, I said, well, how am I supposed to introduce this to the world? And the person that came to mind that would be the absolute greatest if you could ever get him to do it was Tucker Carlson. If he would do that, that's probably the biggest intro. on the song. So thank you. That's how I felt.
You texted me, I went for it.
Dancing in the flames, the people cursed his name, bowed at the altar of the father of lies. But there's a number to their days and all their evil ways. The Lord's gonna turn away from all their cries. Oh, revelation, I can feel it coming like a dark train running. Oh, get ready, 'cause the King is coming. The King is coming back again. Brimstone upon their heads, millstones around their necks. They'll feel the shaking when the trumpet sounds. No matter where they hide, there'll be nowhere to run when Jesus puts his mighty foot on the ground and says, oh, revelation, I can feel it coming like a dark train running. Oh, get ready, 'cause the King is coming. The King is coming back again. When judgment comes like a lightning flash, their voice will wail and their teeth will gnash. He'll set fire to the evil ones and all the wickedness they've done. There'll be no time to turn around as the stars begin to hit the ground and the mountains fall and the veil is torn with the sound of that seventh horn. Oh, revelation, I can feel it coming like a dark train running. Oh, get ready, 'cause the King is coming. The King is coming. Oh, revelation, I can feel it coming like a dark train running. Oh, get ready, 'cause the King is coming. The King is coming back again. The King is coming back again. So wrote the prophet John before his days were done. The King is coming and it won't be long.
John Rich, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Tucker.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
So I want to bring someone else out on stage, and I was thinking about it today, and I've been on the road for like 30 years just covering stuff, and whenever we're in a different city, anywhere really, we always have a dinner, and I always try to invite, as many different kinds of interesting people as possible. Often people seem to have nothing in common. We once had a dinner party with Alex Jones and Steve Inskeep from National Public Radio. Steve Inskeep was horrified. But anyway, the point is, it's interesting to have different kinds of people. But one thing I've noticed in the past 5 or 6 years is that people who would seem to have nothing in common at all sometimes do have deep things in common. And I feel that way about our next guest, Russell Brand, who is from a completely different world. Movie star from England, was on what I thought was the left. And I wound up believing that I had everything in common with Russell Brand. And then, of course, I found out today that Russell Brand and John Rich, who are from polar, you would think, sort of different poles in our society, are also friends. because we have everything in common, and which is to say, their values are totally aligned. And you're seeing that a lot. As the world goes crazy, and we're filled with sadness watching it, and the institutions we grew up with and loved and trusted crumble or betray us, the flip side of that, the compensation for that, the good in the world, is that our relations with other people become deeper and more real and more honest, and we realize actually that things we thought divided us are totally irrelevant, and what matters is who we really are. And so with that as the backdrop, I want to invite my friend, John's friend, Russell Brand. Thank you, Russell. So to give the audience some sense of how much things have changed, I met Russell in his dressing room a couple hours ago, and he said, would you come and do a podcast with me? And I thought, I don't know, I thought we were going to talk about the news of the day. And I get there, and there are 3 crackers and 2 cups of grape juice sitting on the table, and I'm thinking, Russell and I don't drink, so I'm like, what, is that wine? No, it's grape juice. What is that? And he said, we're gonna have communion. Which I loved. I don't think we would have been doing that 3 years ago. Russell, how did you get to a place where you're having communion in the green room at the arena in Fort Lauderdale before the show?
It's been an unusual week. Well, I feel that I've been saved. As we were discussing earlier, and as becomes increasingly evident, we're no longer discussing trivial material, ideological, or economic differences. We are discussing spiritual warfare and the necessity for absolute victory, the absolute necessity for absolute victory. And as we have to overcome the dead former person in each of us and transcend, the same must happen, I suppose, for our culture. It seems that we're at a critical point where sort of tweaks and measurements and levies and tariffs will be insufficient when it appears that a diabolical opponent is concealed behind the mask of globalism. This must be confronted in your country and in mine and across the world. And frankly, John Rich and I have had enough of it, and we've decided to wear a uniform.
Well, yeah, I did notice that.
We're starting a band.
It's gonna be good, Tucker.
I'm a little out of step because
Wait, you know what? If you're gonna be in our band, there's something you need. Do you guys like my boots? Now listen, I don't even think he wears socks. He's some kind of hippie guy living in the woods. I don't know. But Tucker, I thought you were an 11 and a half, but I found out you're actually a 12 and a half.
Not to brag.
You're like, not to brag, but your feet are pretty big. So I don't know if I could hand these over to you.
Oh my word.
If you're gonna be in the band, you need some of those redneck Riviera boots, buddy.
What do you?
Those are 11 and a half. So maybe I could send you a pair that fit. Maybe we should give those away to the audience tonight. Somebody wants them. I don't know.
Maybe we'll have a raffle after. Join us backstage for bingo after the show.
Those would look good on your feet.
Those are amazing. So I don't know.
If you're going to be in the band, I mean, Russell, when are we going to write our first song, man? That's the real question.
Probably over the course of the evening, I would have thought, to celebrate the wonderful people of Fort Lauderdale. Well done surviving that hurricane. Well done surviving everything.
This whole thing is a country song. This whole thing is a country song right now.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Of course.
Totally.
You see everything in terms
We're
of
like
country
the beginning
songs.
of a joke. Like the three of us walk into a bar. And
I'm a bystander in a check shirt, but it's the 2 guys in the black Nashville shirts. I love it.
What I like about John Rich, if I may have a moment of your time.
You may. Oh, please.
I don't know, did any of you see when John Rich was on Jordan Peterson's podcast? And like, Jordan Peterson's quite an intense person. I think you'd agree. He's like if Jordan Peterson's coming to your house, you don't think, oh, there's that mild-mannered, gentle fellow Jordan Peterson. It's quite intense, isn't he? But John Rich out-intensed Jordan Peterson.
got to accept Christ as your Savior. Accept Him now.
Well, no, I did earlier today. I accepted Jesus earlier, actually. I've been thinking about this.
No, accept Him as your Lord and Savior. You're not being Christian enough. Put these goddamn boots on. March to Calgary right now. Kneel before the cross.
Well, no, I've actually written a book, Wrestling with God. It's taken quite a lot of time. It's quite an endeavor.
You're not Christian enough.
Calm down, John. We're all trying our best. Unless it's actual rapture and battles between the Archangel Michael and Satan, John nods off to sleep.
True.
I'm watching this. It's so good. So where would you say we are in
Fort Lauderdale. I knew I'd get one eventually. I saw it. They're fine people, and they, Tucker. You can't keep them down. You can't oppress them. You can lie to them. You can belittle them. You can try and take away their God. But they will rise up, these people. They will withstand hurricanes. They will overwhelm lies. You can try to put a pastiche of phony joy on, a parade of grins and of patronization. Turn the page. But the people of Fort Lauderdale are already awake. Amen.
Get her done.
Get her done. I always ask you this in public and in private, but I can never control myself. When was the moment you found yourself awake?
This is me, because you've had John on. John's done an intense song and everything, his Revelation song. It's always difficult, I think, when you interview a musician and the musician does their song, you have to sort of just go, like while John's going, Revelation, there's an angel coming back again. Hey, well done.
It was amazing.
He is amazing.
Is that the Rage Against the Machine version of what I sound like? What is that? Russell, come on.
It's going to work, this band, eventually, I think. Try and get the boots on now.
What are you going to play?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I was just going to stand in the background and just hope that not to get overwhelmed by it all. Now, when did the awakening happen? And the awakening is continually happening, Tucker, isn't it? Because this is I suppose I will say this. When we have these conversations and you sort of say that you're from the right and like you've worked in legacy media all those years, and actually when I'm talking to like John Rich on a recent podcast that we chatted, me and John, I love John because I love his intensity. You look at him, he's like even now I can feel his eyes boring into me.
You're not being Christian enough.
I'm trying. This is as Christian as I can be.
It's not good enough.
Like, I'm from England, so I don't know what goes on I don't understand your country. I don't understand anything. If it was like, I thought it was fantastic when Barack Obama became president of your country. I thought that's fantastic. Fort Lauderdale. Because I thought, what a wonderful indication of the progress of this nation. 2008, you will recall that there was a terrible financial crash across the world and that the instigators of this economic nightmare, which continues to affect people not only in this country but across the world, ought to have led to a reckoning of financial systems, ought to have led to a reckoning of the type of elites that manage to maraud unseen behind visual government. If there is a power that is veiled, it is the power that goes unchecked when events like 2008 take place. I never would have considered myself a person that would have even conceived of voting for a Republican of any variety. For me, my memories of the Republican Party is like George Bush and Cheney and Iraq war and weapons of mass destruction and needless loss of lives of Americans and Iraqis and British people and people across the world as a result of those conflicts. We're now beyond partisanship. As I said last time we spoke, when Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy joined the MAGA movement, it became clear to me that what we're dealing with is beyond the typical political taxonomies. This is indeed something deeper and more profound. I feel that there's a kind of attempt to mask in language, lies, and words something very, very powerful, malfeasant, and nefarious. Behind these bureaucracies that legislate and control, that curtail and limit, prohibit, and break down institutions that seem sacred and timeless, ineffable, difficult to understand, and impossible to decry, I never thought that we would reach a point where I'd find myself saying, in this election, something has to be done to disrupt what's happening. See me, so when you say like awakening, I've awoken from being a drug addict. I've awoken from thousands of obsessions and compulsions. And now what I've awoken from is the idea that people that talk about protecting the vulnerable have any concern other than the maintenance and exertion of further power. I think it's happening in my country. I think it's happening in your country. I think it's happening in France, in Canada, across the world, masquerading under the auspices and livery of liberalism is something darkly authoritarian, and anything that can disrupt it, prevent it, or stop it proceeding, I think is vital. So awakening, I think, is like an ongoing thing, Tucker.
We hear a lot from viewers about big tech censorship, and those reports are more frequent than ever right now. Censorship meaning shutting down your access to information, not lies or misinformation, but true things. It's only the truth that they censor. Facts that get in the way of the lies they're trying to tell you. The net effect of this, of course, is interfering in the 2024 presidential elections. That's why they're censoring more than ever now, because the stakes are even higher. You're probably not shocked by this, but the specific examples of it do throw you back a little bit. We've seen screenshots and videos showing how a Google search to learn more about the attempted assassination on Donald Trump instead push users to information on Harry Truman or Bob Marley or the Pope. Anything other than the relevant truth, which is that they just shot Trump in the face. They don't want you to know that because it might help Trump. We've seen examples where Facebook marked true photos of a bloodied and defiant Trump as misleading. Somehow those pictures were a lie and then limited their visibility. Its AI assistant explicitly denied the shooting ever took place. This is insanity, but it's at the core of big tech's editorial policy, which is denying the truth to you in order to control the outcome of this presidential election. That's not democracy. We've seen examples where a generic search for information about Donald Trump was automatically rephrased to show positive stories about Kamala Harris instead. Is there any clear example of election interference? So what do you do about it? Well, Parler has been down this road. Parler was pulled right off the internet for telling the truth. But it's back, and it's reaffirmed its lifelong, unwavering commitment to free speech. On Parler, the Bill of Rights lives. The First Amendment is real. You can say what you think because you're a human being and an American citizen and not a slave. On Parler, users can freely express themselves, tell the truth, express their conscience, and connect with others who are doing the same. And they will not be interfered with. They will not be censored. Designed to support a wide range of viewpoints, everyone is welcome on Parler. Parler is committed to ensuring that everybody is heard. And so it's become a place where independent journalism is protected and respected. It's protected because it's respected. So as this censorship by big tech intensifies, standing up for your God-given right as an American to say what you think is essential. We're on Parler. That's why we're on Parler. Our handle is @TuckerCarlson, and we encourage you to join us there. You have the right to say what you believe. So does every American, and you can do it on Parler. Get the Parler app today.
You became a Christian and you were baptized several months ago. It does seem like you're not the only one. It seems like people, well, I'll speak for myself, who grew up in a completely secular world are all of a sudden seeing that there's more out there than our five senses can perceive. Do you sense some kind of Christian awakening in our society, in the West? Or is that my imagination?
I don't think it's your imagination, although you've got a wonderful imagination, Tucker. No one would deny that.
That's true.
I was listening at the side of the stage to John's beautiful song, and for a moment I did consider that perhaps I suppose people are pondering this now. Maybe we will be alive for the return of Christ, for the physical, actual return of Christ, for the second coming. Because I can't imagine how long things could go on being so subtly Luciferian without opposition. Yeah, it seems like there's a Christian awakening. Yeah, it's evident. The more that I learn, the more that I read scripture, the more that I listen to people that know a lot more than I do about this subject, and the Lord alone knows there's enough of them, the more it seems plain and evident to me that we are at some kind of precipice, at something of a reckoning. I don't know what it's going to augur. I don't know what will be born. I don't know what's coming forth. But something in me believes that it is not the dystopia that is being currently imposed. I think that something significant is happening. Like when my earlier encounters of Christianity, I've felt like it was a sort of a placebo, a panacea, a palliative, a kind of offering to dumb you down and to distract you. I don't know how I managed to avoid the deep and profound truth. I don't know how. I suppose it's because of this, like we were discussing earlier. If someone says to you, do you believe that God came to earth in the form of a man and died that you could be forgiven and redeemed and rose again that you may live in eternity? My rational mind, coached as I have been by a culture, the apostasy I commit now is the apostasy of a culture that increasingly we're realizing is appalling and disgusting. Every day there's another story, whether it's Epstein or tales of Hollywood, corruption and debauchery. For me, to go beyond what my rational mind, such as it is, can understand, to believe in order that I can receive, to believe and accept that Christ died for me, that he died for each of us individually, died for all of us collectively, that's beyond my comprehension because my comprehension is so limited. It has brought me a peace beyond all understanding.
So I want to ask each of you, I want to ask you to flesh that out, and John, for your response, you said, you sense that the dystopia that's building, and it's obvious, I'm not even going to describe it, but the centralization of power, the intense anti-human impulses that our leaders seem to have, the main goal seems to be to hurt people, prevent them from having children. By the way, if someone doesn't want you to have children, he hates you. That's the measure. When you love someone, you love your children, you want them to have children. If you don't want people to have children, you hate them, really simple. So you see all of this happening globally at the same time, and you feel like, wow, in 10 years, this really is gonna be a totalitarian global state. But you're saying you feel that's not actually the future. In your gut, you don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I can't believe that that is what's happening, and that's not what's prophesied. Everything that's unfolding, and again, I'm very new to this, like I've only been Christian 6 months. I've been under quite a lot of pressure. But them apostles hadn't been doing it long, had they, John? They were out there getting amongst it, spreading the good word, trying to save the world. And for me, yeah, it's very much the Christianity of Revelation, not the Romans 13 that tells you to obey the government. I don't know who slipped that in there. I'm very much, this is it. This is it. This is what we're here to do. This is it. It's happening. It's unfolding before us. So, can I, what was the question, Tuck? Because I've got so excited by the people of Fort Lauderdale.
The question was,
we're in an ice hockey rink.
There was a glimmer of
There's
hope.
cowboy boots on the stage. How are we to make sense of this? You're wearing gingham, as usual.
I only have one shirt, and I wear it every day, and I'm really happy with it. I wear it fishing, shooting, sitting on stage. It's the all-purpose shirt. Highly recommended. No, we spend our lives, you and I, John has a much more decent life, but we spend our lives describing everything that's terrible and where this is going. And you offered a glimmer of hope, and you said, I can't imagine that there isn't victory.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is what I'm saying. Something so profound and unusual has happened to me. After, I've spent my life hedonistically, I've indulged in Epicureanism. I've experienced a lot of the things that the culture tells you you're supposed to do. Get famous, enjoy some. Yes, sir, absolutely. Are you still expecting an ice hockey match? It's difficult for me to contextualize that at this distance. What I would say is, why do I feel optimistic about this? Because my belief in Christ is beyond the rational mind. It is a feeling of a rising God present in all of us. It is the knowledge that I am forgiven, that we are all forgiven, that none of us are pretending to be perfect, none of us are trying to hold ourselves up to the measurements of this culture, that transcendence and the revelation is available to all of us right now. Why do I feel optimistic about it? Because something very strange is happening, I think, when I find myself in Fort Lauderdale, sat between Tucker Carlson and John Rich, talking about Jesus. Jesus. Yeah, he'll work it out. We don't have to do anything anyway, do we? We can just relax here and try and force Tucker Carlson into those shoes.
Well, you brought up the word dystopian. You know, I think in a lot of our minds, we read the book of Revelation and we envision what the world must look like when that book is playing out, and it looks like a apocalypse movie to us. But it won't look like that. It does not say that. It says, back to Noah, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the end times. And it says, in the days of Noah, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage. They were going on with regular life. The world was not falling apart. It was just wicked. And Noah was living in the middle of that. So it's not going to look like some apocalypse movie before he comes back. It's going to be, they're not going to like us very much. Anybody that won't submit or bend to the will of this empire that's going to come up there, I think we're watching being built right now, they're not going to like us very much, but it's not going to look like some apocalypse movie. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And the truth is, and I'll stop, but the Lord wins. He wins in the end. He destroys all of them, and we win with him. So that's the victory. It happens at the end. You just have to go through the rut to get there.
Well, I like what John Rich just said, if I may tell you, Tucker, even though I know you were here and you're just there and he's there, look. It's like that. What I liked is John Rich was describing worldliness, mundanity, banality. And what I'm experiencing is the kind of banalization and desacralization of everything. You're right. It isn't like sort of some roaring and demonic hellscape. It's a sort of crushing ordinariness. It's a crushing mundanity. It's the crushing of the spirit, that your life is sort of trite and rote. And here you are, devour your gruel and stare at your sticky screen endlessly. Like it's not even that dramatic or barbaric. You're right. It's the mechanical tedium of a global bureaucracy that sees everything as data, that would patent seeds, that would patent life itself, that would see ovaries as little more than a resource. All things mundial, literally of the world. Worldliness, the flesh, and the devil are the opponents that we must be aware of, John. You're right. And it is the tediousness, I suppose, that we must oppose through his glory, and perhaps through these shirts and those little booties.
The shirts are an act of defiance. So I am struck, you put it so nicely, the sticky screens will keep me up at night thinking about what exactly that
I
means.
hope not.
No,
I'm praying for you. I'm praying for all of us. That was a joke. I just did a joke. Sorry.
But I was taught to believe that when totalitarian government came, people would be marching through my town and I'd have to salute them. I didn't realize it would be like a heavyset middle-aged woman kind of scolding me about health.
We read a bit of George Orwell before, Tucker and I. And of course, if you think of the ongoing portrayal of Trump as a kind of throwback, as they continually say that he is a dystopic dictator and that he'll make himself president for life. But indeed, it is more these anodyne bureaucracies that are vividly portrayed in the writers, the Czech writer Franz Kafka's work, who talks about unknowable bureaucratic entities that can accuse you of stuff and you never know quite where it's coming from. Or Aldous Huxley, who writes not about dystopias, in fact, but utopias, where everything is one. Because the key thing is, of course, the replacement of God. Once you've extracted God, then they are God. Once you have denied people access to the divine, then you are free to replace God in their lives. You are free to issue new creeds. You are free to issue new dictums. And I thought it was very beautiful in that bit of Orwell from 1984 that we was reading, me and Tucker before, we was having a chat back there. But when it says that famous bit from George Orwell, when he talks about the dystopia that's being created, and he says, if you want to have an image, you'll know this line because you're well-educated, beautiful people of Fort Lauderdale. If you want to imagine the future of humanity, says the leader or a mouthpiece of the dictatorship depicted in 1984. He says, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. Now, that's not like the jackboot of the very real Nazis. It's the identity of the human face. In whose image were you made? In whose image were you made? If you can stamp out and grind out the God from man, then you are free to replace them. And what could be more diabolical, more Luciferian, more evil than that?
Can I ask, how many people in your orbit, friends of yours, people you talk to every day, understand what you've just said? No, I don't mean understand the words you've said, but understand the terms, that maybe we're not just looking at like a presidential election or referendums against the EU or debates over climate change or war or whatever, but that this is all part of something much larger, a reorganization of the world into what you just described.
Revivalism has happened before, hasn't it? There's been revivalism in my country. There's been revivalism here, famously. And even in the 60s and 70s, someone was telling me today there was a revival of Christianity. I think it's difficult I don't know if it's difficult for people to understand. We used to think that the counterculture was going to provide rebellion, radicalism, anti-establishmentarianism. That's in fact the place where you and I met was, I mean, not literally, but I mean sort of spiritually, as it were, was you don't trust the establishment, I don't trust the establishment. People say, oh, when did Russell get red-pilled? And when, Russell, you are a Republican type stuff. Because I believe in individual freedom. I believe that the government shouldn't get involved. I feel like, want to just leave people to hell alone. But what the difference is, or the distinction is, I suppose, that, I've adored countercultural figures that have come out of your country, civil rights leaders. These are like magnificent people, often, curiously enough, deeply religious people that are willing to sacrifice their lives for a higher good. I think it's hard for people in my circle, as you ask, to equate Christianity, which has somehow been, through slander, through hyperbole, through blasphemy, reduced to something, I don't know quite what it's been reduced to, banalized, criticized, blasphemed against. I don't think people recognize that within it is the key, the door, the path, the light, the bread, the vine, the salvation that we require is all embedded there. You can't sort of solve it within this paradigm. You can't solve it with this versus that. You can't solve it with rationalistic and materialistic means. I'm not surprised that they still look to the counterculture, that they still look to, no disrespect, men with guitars, because maybe you are the man with the guitar to do it, John. That they still thinking that the culture is somehow going to generate some solution. But for me, it's not that. But I can hardly condemn people for not recognizing that the solution is to be found in Jesus Christ, our Savior, because, 6 months ago, I'd not been baptized. 6 months ago, I didn't know that I was chosen. 6 months ago, I didn't understand my heritage. 6 months ago, I didn't understand the simplicity of this. And my literal prayer in this moment is that people will join this awakening. People will join this awakening. And for that to happen, I think we have to be so open-hearted with love. It has to be clear, so absolutely clear, that this does not run on hatred, that this does not run on condemnation, exclusivity, or racism, or damning, or tribalism. We have to recognize what he taught us. We have to recognize and live his final words. Love God with all your heart and love one another. Love one another. It isn't easy to love one another, is it sometimes? Is it, John?
Sometimes.
I love your point about the counterculture. I'm really...
Why did he look at me when he said that?
Because you were being all fierce. Like, all the time I was saying, it's not Christian enough.
I never said that, by the way, Russell.
Well, I'll say the counterculture is not counterculture enough for me. And I've noticed that all the counterculture figures, no offense, the guys who wear black shirts in general, and are telling you how radical they are and dye their hair blue, they all seem like bodyguards for BlackRock to me. And they all seem to be on the side of the defense contractors. And Dick Cheney just endorsed Kamala Harris, and she likes it. And no, I'm serious. And they all seem, I mean, for all the radicals running, I'm so radical, I'm a trans person, really? Why does no one mention that they're loaning money at 30% interest and like half the country's enslaved by the credit card companies? No one ever, you're not allowed to say that. And when Donald Trump said that the other day, which you're absolutely not allowed to say, he's like, well, maybe we should just, I don't know, cap the interest at 10% at some point, because we used to put members of the Genovese family in prison for loan sharking at the rates that the credit card companies are charging. But you're not allowed to say that because you're like a socialist or something. That's sick. And I guess I even feel guilty just having grown up in a world where like to criticize a credit card company was like blasphemy. But I guess if you were thinking about what's best for people or flip it around what's really bad for them, being deeply in debt to a bank is not freedom, it's slavery. And people who are getting rich from slavery are bad people. And I don't know why you can't say that. And when Trump said that, and maybe who knows, I'm sure AEI and all the other supposedly conservative think tanks in DC are like frantically issuing white papers paid for by the credit card companies to tell you that he's actually Hugo Chavez for noticing. But it's still true. It's still true. And if you were actually counterculture and in a world where the culture is really dark and anti-human, you should be, then you'd be saying stuff like that. You wouldn't be flacking for BlackRock and Boeing, and you wouldn't be psyched when Dick Cheney endorses your pathetic status campaign. And so like, I don't know, I'm hoping for a revival of a counterculture a little bit.
Conservatives are the only real outlaws still left in the United States of America. We're the real outlaws.
So, sorry. And by the way, I'm not a socialist. 30% on a credit card? Why is that not embarrassing? If I lit a Marlboro in a restaurant, I'd be arrested. But if you get rich charging 30% on a credit card to poor people, everyone's like, oh, that's so great. It's not great, it's disgusting, and you should be ashamed.
I've got a lot of friends that are Democrats in the entertainment industry that are, big time liberal guys. Bernie Sanders liberal, that are friends of mine. Comedians I know you know a lot of them. Singers, songwriters, people like that. And they see how bad things are getting in the country, and they'll call me up on the phone, sometimes even come over to the house and want to sit down and talk to me. They're so upset about what they see going on, but they just can't get themselves to think about voting for Donald Trump. And so they asked me, how do I get over this, man? Because I just don't like the guy. I just don't like him. And so my answer has been this, and I think this is an important thing for people to hear, because I'm sure everybody in here has family members that have that feeling, and neighbors and friends and maybe even kids, right? We all know a bunch of them. So here was my answer to them. The system is evil, and the system is trying to murder Donald Trump. So who does that make Donald Trump? That makes him the enemy of the wicked. So it doesn't matter if you like everything about him, they hate him and they're wicked. So that should be enough for you to understand he's your guy. It's a logical thing to come to a conclusion, I believe. That's how I've been talking to people.
What do they say?
It's pretty simple, right? Well, they say, well, that's a good point. I go, no, that is the point. I said, Dick Cheney is a bad guy. Kamala's a bad girl. Lots of bad people all getting together from both sides of the aisle to try to take this guy out. That means he is not part of them. By default, He is not part of what they are for. I think it's a simple argument. I mean, Russell, dude, you talk like a thesaurus, man. I mean, I wish I could record it. I always learn new words when I hang out with Russell. You know, eighth grade was a long 4 years for me, I'll be honest. But, you know, I write simple country songs, but I think that simple answers and logical conclusions will unravel the complexities of these people's minds when they are just tore up. They know things are going wrong and they don't like Trump. What do we do about it? I go, listen, the system is evil. The system is trying to murder him. What does that tell you about him? He's the enemy of evil in our country right now.
Can I say one thing about Trump? If Trump did no other thing throughout his life but drive Dick Cheney to the Kamala Harris campaign, that would be enough. And I just want to apologize. I want to admit that I spent years defending Dick Cheney, that I was wrong, and that a lot of people I liked and respect defended Dick Cheney. It's not even about Dick Cheney the man, it's about the worship of violence for profit, which is totally immoral, it's totally wrong, and a lot of us were cowed into pretending it wasn't wrong, it is wrong, and we're not allowed to kill people except in self-defense. That's true, that's always true. And we can argue about what self-defense is, but if you find yourself killing people because you're making money from it, that is murder, and we should never defend it. And I don't care what party is doing it. I don't care what they tell you about their motives. That's totally wrong. And I feel ashamed for the countless times, and you can look them up on freaking YouTube, which exists just to shame me. But the many times when I defended that, and I do feel shame for that, and I'm really sorry I did. But thanks to Trump, intentionally or not, now we see the clear outline. At this point, 21 years after the Iraq War, if you're on Dick Cheney's side, you have no excuse, actually, period. And now he's with her, and we got, I don't know, Bobby Kennedy and Russell Brand. I think it's a pretty good trade. You were kind of onto the Dick Cheney thing early. How'd you know?
Well, I thought he came across as a bit evil.
He did come across as a bit evil, you're right.
And when anti-establishment then, when I was just trying to bide my time quietly as a heroin addict, was that when people went to war on false pretenses, and it was clear that it was to some degree a corporate endeavor, and you'll notice that the British have never been guilty of colonizing a planet. Seems that that lineage has been able to snake its way in a serpentine coil. Either side of the aisle, the beast is lithe, the beast moves easily through the institutions. The beast is observable when you see its eyes and when you see its flickering tongue and the dark liquid spittle beneath the ground that it forever plunders and pummels. The black gold of oil. Cheney mining onwards. It was good. Look, I'm still angry when he said that I sound like a thesaurus, and you lot laughed. Now that was hurtful. I've come here from Great Britain. I'm trying my hardest.
Can you do something for me? Can you just say, I just want Russell to do this for me, just for my own entertainment. Can you say, to be or not to be? That is the question. I got to hear it in a Russell Brand fashion.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against them.
Here we go.
And by opposing, end them. Yeah, I used to know a lot more Shakespeare, John, but then I started hanging out with Republicans. In a crazy attempt to avert Armageddon.
I've noticed that people who are against war now are fascists.
Yes.
How does that work?
If you're pro-free speech, pro-health, particularly the health of children, if you're pro-opposing globalism, corporatism, the excesses of big pharma, the exploitation, an evident and obvious lie that took place on a global scale during the pandemic, the shaming, blaming, condemning, and interning of people across the world, potentially the poisoning of hundreds of millions of people, if you oppose this, if you oppose the machineries that facilitated it, advocated for it, that were quite willing to condemn people of all hues, colors, cultures, and persuasions, call people the vilest names, condemn them as racists or worse, simply for opposing the excessive force of a state that's supposed to exist entirely in your service. During this time, yes, this was a large part of my awakening. If you can't hear the sirens then, if you can't see that that is a call, a clarion call, a harbinger, if you can't see that that is the moment where the skies are darkening, bruised, if you can't hear the trumpets then hear them now. For surely something large is upon us. Surely some slouching beast is coming towards us, awaiting to be born, unless we can oppose it duly. What I'm trying to tell you is that I'm not a regular Trump voter kind of guy. I'm not allowed to vote at all, actually, because I'm from England. Although, maybe, because apparently I don't need no ID, could just show up.
Everybody else is doing it. You should too. Come on, man.
Are you going to try it?
Hello, I wonder if it only works if you vote for a particular candidate. Then sort of come round again with like a John Rich handlebar moustache and try and vote again.
Amazing.
I'm just here in your wonderful state to have a bit of fun, to spread a bit of love. I'm here to be lovely to you. What I think about, Tucker, what I try and think about, because remember I'm a show-off for a living, like I'm a comedian. I used to be in films in Hollywood, don't you know? Oh, I saw some things. Now, I try to remember that I'm here, firstly because you asked me to come here, and if you ask me to do things, I try to do them, because you're a beautiful person, and I care about you, you're a beautiful man. And also because I think that you deserve some joy and some love. I'm here because I want to entertain you and amuse you and make you happy and be truthful and authentic before you. It's a great privilege to have that opportunity. Before everything, I was just trying to eat in the world, but there's never enough to eat here. There is only one bread that can fulfill this hunger. There is only one light that can illuminate the darkness. There is only one vine that can feed us. There is only one door through which we may pass to the true bliss of knowing him, even if that bliss involves great suffering. In the suffering, we can join him. Not that his suffering wasn't complete and perfect. Not that his suffering didn't do for us everything that it needed to do. But if we can feel in our own suffering, and I know that there's so much suffering, I know from my own, and I feel yours too. And I know that the deepest truth is love. I know that any one of us could get involved in some petty spat at a traffic light, that any one of us could rub up against each other the wrong way, though I'd be very careful. This is Florida. There's concealed carry. I know that the deepest truth is love. I know that in your vulnerability, in your frailty, in your fragility is where that we can love one another. And I know that this is where the healing can come from. I know that he wants us vulnerable. That's where his strength can abide in us. So this is why I talk to you about previous elections and previous candidates and previous parties and the hypocrisies and their failures, because this is an important time. For when John gives the example of, talking to people that are never going to get down with Trump, because a lot of people are watching CNN, or a lot of people, not that many, some people, but it's still on, isn't it? They're trying their best. Pfizer's got to advertise somewhere. I'm saying that there's a particular burden upon us to be beautiful and to be forgiving. He tells us exactly what to do, isn't it? He tells us exactly what to do. It's not to be ardent and hostile. He only flipped over them tables for a little bit. We can't just stay in the perpetual flipping of the tables. We shouldn't be sitting at the tables that he flipped over, that's for sure. But love is his main message. Love, isn't it? And that's a duty, and it requires a diligence, and it isn't easy, is it, Tucker, to return to that love? Although you great, fearless, sockless madman, you seem to be able to do it.
Oh, the best. All right, now I know.
You having fun, Tucker? Are you having fun?
Honestly,
is it everything you thought it would be?
Honestly, you get John Rich and Russell Brand. It's the best. I know, however, that a lot of people have to go back to soggy homes. There are people with fans going on in their living rooms right now.
Oh, yeah.
I want to end with each of you. I'm going to ask each of you to do something, and I hope you will, things that I think you're great at. John, will you play a song for us of your choice?
Sure.
And Russell, will you send us out, I know it's only been 6 months, but you're great at it, in prayer after John's song?
Yes, I'd be honored.
All right.
Can I just say before John sings, like John, when John went, I'm just a simple singer of simple country song. Like songs like Archangel Michael fighting the devil outside a church. It's not singing like about heartbreak, is he? Like a Mustang.
Sing simple songs about Armageddon.
Yeah, if I didn't know you better, I'd punch you right in the mouth, honestly.
What he doesn't know is I'm taking advantage of that concealed carry law.
Y'all knew what I meant by that, right? Well, it's been a great conversation, Tucker. Thank you for having us up here and all these people who care about our country for showing up. I thought I'd end it with something we could all laugh about. Is that okay with you, Russell, since you're... I've become good friends with this guy, better by every conversation and text. He's legit, man. He ain't kidding at all. I'm so proud of him. We're lucky to have him on our side. Okay. This is a song called I'm Offended. And it goes like this. It seems like these days, no matter what you say, someone's losing their ever-loving mind. It's like they're looking for a reason to have their fragile feelings hurt every single time. My country truck, I gas it up. You got your fancy Tesla hooked up to a plug. I know you're mad, you think I'm bad, 'cause I'm breathing free at last and you're still stuck behind your mask and I'm offended. You're offended. Let's all get offended tonight. Come on. I'll order us a beer. We can sit down right here and scream and yell and cuss and fuss and fight. Now hang on just a minute. You can't amend the First Amendment. You're offended. I defend it all the time. So let's take another sip. Don't hold back and let it rip, 'cause in the end you'll be left and I'll be right. And I'm offended. You're offended. Let's all get offended tonight. I'll order us a beer. We can sit down right here and scream and yell and cuss and fuss and fight. I like to shoot my .22. Somehow it seems to always trigger you. Bang, bang. I pray to God you think that's odd, 'cause you say he don't exist, so why are you so pissed? I'm offended. Come on now. You're offended. Let's all get offended tonight. I'll order us a beer. We can sit down right here and scream and yell and cuss and fuss and fight. I'll order us a beer. We can sit down right here and scream and yell and cuss and fuss and fight. music, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to America.
John Rich! Wonderful. That's so, I wish I could do that. That is so cool. All right, Russell Brand, would you mind? Would you do us the honor of ending this evening on a prayerful note?
Yes, thank you. I call on the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, creator of heaven and earth. Lord, forgive me making this prayer in public. Please, Lord, ask that everyone hears what they need to hear. And I thank you for bringing us together. I thank you for the gift of this hour, of this moment, and of this breath. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity for true unity, Lord. Thank you, Lord, that we may know freedom in you. Thank you, Heavenly Father, that you came here, that you sacrificed yourself, that we may be forgiven, that you died that we may know eternal life, Lord. Heavenly Father, at this time where we feel fraught, when we feel afraid, when we feel that the true light is being blinded out and drowned out by the false light of intellectualism and materialism and by the deception and lies of those that claim to care, that mask their true intentions behind words of kindness, Lord, may we feel you. May we feel your presence in this moment. Heavenly Father, I ask that all of the people here that are suffering can feel the warmth of your presence with them now in this moment. And I ask that as we approach this election, with all of this violence that there is in the world, with all of the war that there is in the world at the moment, with all of this conflict, with all of this contradiction and hypocrisy, Lord, I ask that you show us a way, that you show us a path, because it's only you that can show us. Lord, I'm thankful to you that we are brothers and sisters here together. And I ask that all of you, would you join me now using the prayer that he taught us? And don't be embarrassed if you say thou or you or however you say it. Please join me, all of you, in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, Lord.
Amen. Any prayer that starts with thanks is a good prayer. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And thank you all for coming out in the middle of a storm. I appreciate it.
The big tech companies censor our content. I hate to tell you that it's still going on in 2024, but you know what they can't censor? Live events. And that's why we are hitting the road on a fall tour for the entire month of September, coast to coast. We will be in cities across the United States. We'll be in Jacksonville, Florida with Donald Trump Jr. You can get tickets at tuckercarlson.com. Hope to see you there.